Cranfield has always been extraordinarily special because of its brilliant, outstanding teaching. And that's what impressed me when I first came here 40 years ago. And I made myself relatively unpopular when I was deputy director because I realized that we needed to move into the scholarly research space, and we weren't very good at that in those days. So I allied myself with people like Professor David Cranfield and Cliff Bowman and Jerry Johnson and those sort of people. And we gradually moved not away from excellent teaching, but towards more scholarly research. Now we are fantastic in both of those domains. So we are now, I think we can honestly call ourselves a school of scholarly teaching. So I'm relatively proud of the part I played in that. Well, I used to be marketing and sales director of Canada Dry, as you possibly know, and the world has changed beyond all recognition. I thought I was clever, but the reality is that in those days it was all growth. And if you got out of bed in the morning and said hello to a customer, you got rich. And it was all about products. Now those days have changed quite dramatically. And if you think about when all that started, you think about somebody like IBM, who nearly went bankrupt. They thought they were in the mainframe market. Gestetner, who thought they were in the duplicator market. More recently, Kodak thought they were in the film and camera market. And then you got Nokia, just very recently thought they were in the phone market. That's all gone, because today there are no products that aren't excellent. So you're not going to get any differential advantage at all by having a good product, because they're all good, they all work. The way you get differential advantage today is by understanding markets and the customers within them. If you cast your mind back 20 years, just beyond 20 years, I was aware that dealing with big, powerful customers was becoming a major issue in business. For example, at the time there were 10 car companies left in the world. There were only 6 supermarkets accounting for about 85% of all grocery products, and so on and so forth. And yet nobody that I was aware of at any other university had bothered to research this and really develop processes for it. And as usual, Cranfield were ahead of the curve. So I formed this research club, and 20 years later, because the agenda has always been set by the members of the research club, customers like SKF and Rolls-Royce and 3M, they're all in the room next door as we speak. And it's been fantastic producing papers and articles and giving us all material that we can use on the MBA program, the MSc program, etc., etc. So 20 years later, it is still extraordinarily successful. And as far as I know, it's the only club in any university that is anything like the one that we've got. The standout moment for me during all of my 40 years, and you'll possibly find this quite amusing, is the first time I ever got better ratings from the students than Professor Joe Nellis. And it was extraordinarily hard throughout those years to beat student ratings with people like David Middleton around and Cliff Bowman and other famous teachers. And the first time I ever did it, I thought, yippee, it's taken me 600 years to do it, but I've finally done it. And the students are very hard taskmasters. So I learned a lot from those famous teachers. My students, of course, they come in different shapes and sizes. So let's think about maybe an MBA or an MBA or MSc class. I would really want them to understand very clearly that you don't succeed in business by trying to be all things to all people. You can use expressions like the Lorenz curve, but what we're talking about fundamentally is the 80-20 rule. And if you try to please everybody, you're going to end up pleasing nobody. So that is the main message. And then I would say the other part of the same message is that they have to understand proper needs-based segmentation, not the garbage that passes for segmentation. And once they understand that, focusing on segments that match their asset base, anybody can succeed once you understand those two things. I'm quite clear in my mind that the world has changed quite dramatically. And you probably think I'm going to talk about technology. Well, no, that's going on anyway, and it'll always go on. I'm going to talk about the sort of take, make, waste model which has underpinned capitalist societies. And in 50 years' time, we're going to be using 3 times the planet's available resources, and it will lead to multi-trillion-dollar losses for organizations who insist on espousing that model, taking virgin resources and thinking they can build their model on that. We know it's called the circular economy, but that is going to have to change very, very dramatically. And there are signs that it already, with the best companies in the world, that it is changing. And I think the very last point I would make is that democracy and the way we run society is going to have to change, because as we sit here now, there are 62 people who own more wealth than the bottom half of the planet, and that's set to become even more focused. You cannot go on running a society like that. So governments will have to find a way of thinking about the distribution of wealth. And I think those are probably the 2 most important changes that will take place over the next 50 years.